Hey guys, welcome to a little behind the scenes out of spec bits episode. And I'm sitting here with Mayor Chris of Normal, Illinois. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to meet with us.
Always glad to talk about my community.
And this is really kind of a funny story because we got on the plane last night from Chicago to Normal's airport. And we came here because Scott behind the camera actually just picked up her Rivian today. And she happened to sit next to you on the plane.
Right.
And I was like, if we're coming and you're sitting next to the mayor, let's do a video. And, you know, Rivian has built this insane automotive plant here, certainly world class. Wanted to talk about how you got them to come here, all of these things. But I just think the situation on how you and Scott met is just hilarious, where you sat next to each other on the plane yesterday.
Yeah, it really was. And, you know, and we just started a conversation and I offered that I was the mayor, and then that kind of opened the door. She started telling me about what you guys are doing and everything that was happening here. So
it just worked out.
Yep.
So I figured since we have the opportunity to talk, and you know, typically our videos are super long, we don't need to go. Right. We'll go as long as it takes. But yeah, to me, we never get the opportunity to meet with local government when it comes to the impact of automotive. In general, I would say most people would say automotive has a negative impact on community in the sense where there's like pollution and all this other stuff coming. However, I would say like I am an outsider and I've come to Normal probably 5 or 6 times because of Rivian. So I've only learned about the town because of Rivian. So my impression is super positive. We've met a bunch of people who work for Rivian who are incredibly grateful to have that job. The wages are amazing. And so in general, I think what would be really cool is to sort of zoom out, talk about some of the good, some of the bad, some of the amazing of, you know, this town getting such a huge automotive plant here. So the plant was originally Mitsubishi, right?
Correct. It was actually originally a cooperation partnership between Chrysler Motors and Mitsubishi, and it was called Diamond Star Motors when it first came here. And that relationship broke apart, and then Mitsubishi continued to manufacture vehicles for about 33 years.
Okay, so Normal's always had a car plant.
Well, not always.
Well, 33
We've been around
years.
since 1857.
Okay, at least in recent memory,
Right.
Cars have been part of the local area. What was it like with Diamond Star when the factory went in? You grew up here, right?
Yes.
So do you remember when they built it originally?
I do. And it was an exciting endeavor. A lot of Japanese people were coming to the community. They were looking at the community to decide if this community was the right place for them, or they were looking in Indiana, Ohio, Michigan to locate a plant for American manufacturing.
So how did Normal, and yeah, how did that even happen? How did the Japanese decide this is where cars should be built?
Well, of course, every state is always on the lookout for manufacturing in that. And so the state of Illinois started the process, and so they went through the delineation process of, you know, where are we going to end up? And the Japanese came to the community, they spent some time with the community, and one of the interesting stories about it is we have a sister cities in Japan, Osakawa, Japan. And we had 2 high school students that were here. And when the Japanese found out about that, they said that we want to talk to those 2 students. And so they brought them in to talk to, and they told everybody in the Normal team, we're going to talk to them privately. And so they wanted to know what it was like to be in this community. And I think the big issue was they were concerned about being a foreign company and bringing a lot of Japanese people into this community if we were going to be a welcoming community. And that really, I was told, was the tipping point, that they felt like this was a community where Japanese people would be welcome.
That is a wild set of circumstances.
Right.
That you just had 2 Japanese students here. I assume you had a few Americans over there.
Yes,
from
we
Normal.
had 2 Americans in Osakawa.
Okay, that's insane. So they came here. They you know, Normal was somehow on the short list, and I guess having those Japanese students may have thrown them over the edge then.
Well, it was part of Over the Edge. Obviously, there was a lot of money coming from the state.
Sure.
The infrastructure had to be here to build that factory and that. But I actually became very good friends with one of the Japanese executives who helped, and he said the tipping point wasn't about the money, and that the tipping point was it was a community where they felt their workers would be welcome.
Okay, love to hear that. So then the factory location was selected sort of on the west side of town.
Correct.
And why that particular spot? How did that come to be?
Well, I think it was available land is one, and I think more importantly, connection to the railroad, to rail, and proximity to the interstate connections.
Right. And so now that's all called like Rivian Motorway or whatever that road
It
is.
used to be Mitsubishi Motorway.
Okay, nice.
We changed it to Rivian Motorway.
Amazing. So what was it like during the Mitsubishi days? It seems like it was always a pretty stable workforce. I don't know much about what happened back then, but what were the impacts? How did that all go back then?
So Mitsubishi did quite well for a number of years. They had up to 3,300 employees in the plant. And they were making the Mitsubishi Eclipse, which was their main product, and the Mitsubishi Galant. And they were also still doing some contract work for Chrysler. It was an interesting assembly line out there because they could build 6 different vehicles on the same line.
Interesting.
And that at that time, that was pretty revolutionary to do that. It's hard to say what caused them to kind of pull back a little bit. It could have been market, it could have been economics in Japan, economics here. I couldn't really answer that. But they reduced their workforce to about 1,100 people.
What year roughly?
Oh, I'm going to say that happened 2000, 2001, somewhere in there.
Yeah. And so then you had a lot of people living here out of work.
Yeah, although it's interesting, we thought it was going to be a major impact on Normal and Bloomington, and it turned out not to be, because we found out that automotive manufacturers are regional employers. They're not local employers. And so there were a lot of people coming from nearby communities that lived in nearby communities that worked in the plant. So there was an impact, but not near what we thought it would be.
And so when did that all end? So they had some reduction down to 1,100 people, early 2000s. What caused them to leave entirely, or when did that all happen?
So, my understanding was that there was a kind of internal disagreement in Japan whether to continue to make vehicles in the United States or not. And the group that wanted to discontinue manufacturing here had the upper hand on that. And I think the tipping point was, and this is interesting about Mitsubishi, when they closed the plant, they were a major exporter. They were selling a lot of cars to South America and a lot of cars to Russia. And so when things between the United States and Russia got abrasive, if you will, the imports dropped way off.
Interesting.
And their ability to export to Russia is really kind of what sealed the deal.
So what year was it that all Mitsubishi operations ended there?
You're asking the wrong person in terms of, I'm terrible about dates.
Yeah. But,
I would
roughly
say probably 2011, 2012.
Okay. So, maybe 10 to 15 years ago, something like that. And then what happened? So they all moved out. Factory was just idle, just sitting there as an empty building?
So they closed it, and they really didn't do anything. They left the equipment in place.
Okay.
And probably one of the standout features of that plant is the stamping facility that they have out there. It's apparently an incredibly complex and robust stamping system that they have, and you can't move those.
I've been in there. They're massive.
Well, the foundation goes down 4 stories.
Okay, dang, that's wild. So, there must have been a time period where the plant was idle.
Yes.
People were coming to look, I assume, and tour it and have conversations about should they take over the plant. Were those plentiful? What was that like during that?
We were working with the state economic development office, and we did have people looking. We had one of the big threes, I'm not going to say who, that were looking, and they said they were very interested in the plant, but they weren't ready to do it at the time. At probably about the time that started happening, Mitsubishi sold the plant to a liquidator.
Okay.
And the plan was to keep the plant on the market for X amount of time, and if such time the plant didn't sell, they would auction off all the equipment and tear the building down.
Really? Okay. So the plan was just to, just do like a giant auction, get the robots out of there, whatever it is, and then turn it into nothing and then sell the land off.
Right.
Okay. But that didn't end up happening.
It didn't. And so we had automotive parts manufacturer look at it. We had a contract auto manufacturer look at it. We had some other smaller people look at it, but nobody would pull the trigger on it. It didn't work for what they were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and what was the pitch then? Because along with a factory, you need a town. So of course you have normal, you need a workforce, you need knowledgeable people that are used to working in factory environments. So when you were, not you specifically, but when people were coming here to tour the factory, what did the town offer, in terms of people, housing,
Well,
knowledge?
I think, we offered support. We had a lot of Mitsubishi people still in the marketplace, still living in Bloomington Normal in the area. Also, if you look at Decatur, Illinois, Pontiac, Illinois, Peoria, Illinois, there's strong manufacturing bases there. So there was workforce here. But I think it was just the economics of the time and the fact that the plant was either too big or too small, depending on who the manufacturer was.
Yeah, makes sense. Eventually, Rivian must have got involved. And I don't even know if it was called Rivian at the time, but
it was Rivian at the time. But and I got this from RJ. Apparently, they were close to closing the deal on the plant, auctioning the equipment and tearing it down. And Rivian sent some people down from Plymouth, Michigan, to preview the auction, to see if there's any equipment that would be useful for them.
Yeah.
And when the people they sent came down here, they said, "Oh my God, you got to come down here and look at this plant," because they were shocked at how well the Japanese had maintained that plant. And they said it was in pristine condition.
So even after they left, things were good inside.
Yeah, very, very much so. It was a very well maintained plant.
That fits kind of with Japanese culture, from my impression.
Yeah, absolutely. So apparently they got RJ and some other people to come and look at the plant, and they got excited about it. We met with them, and the state of Illinois met with them to talk about it. But it was kind of interesting because Rivian was very much a startup at that point.
Yeah, did they even have their vehicles like announced? People know who they were at the time? So it was just some random guys showing up that wanted to build an electric vehicle.
Exactly. And RJ was initially going to build a sports car.
Right.
But he changed his mind. He had this vision for the adventure vehicles, what he calls it.
From my impression, just a quick note on the cars. Like, I'm a huge Rivian fan. I know you have a Rivian. I have one as well. They're just amazing vehicles. So I'm glad they chose the path they did.
I am too.
Yeah, they're just incredible.
RJ always said that the product he was making would be the Patagonia of automotive products.
Yeah, and well, they nailed it.
He got it.
Okay, so Rivian came. You met with them for the first time. What was it like meeting RJ, the team? You have to think back. Like we mentioned, there's no car. There's no idea of what they're going to do. It's a really sizable facility for such a small group of people and a really small company. So did you think they were serious? What was the impression back then?
So We initially had a couple of meetings, and of course we were like, who are these guys, and are they real?
Right.
So we did some vetting of what they told us, and everything checked out. And so we were coming up on deadline on that plant, so we're going to take any halfway serious offer or serious offer to heart because we really wanted to save that plant.
Yeah. And what was the motivation to save it from your side?
Lost opportunity for the community. I mean, it was a well built, well maintained factory. The potential of future jobs. We felt it was really important to do everything we could do to get something back into that plant.
Mm-hmm. So the first meeting went well then?
First couple of meetings went very well. And I remember talking to the team. RJ wasn't at, I don't think he was at the first couple of meetings. It was people that worked for him. And it was interesting. One of them said they were impressed by the community as well. They didn't expect what they were going to see in the community, what you see.
Yeah, I mean, downtown is beautiful here. I've been to an event just in this courtyard down over here not long ago. Yeah, when Rivian brought out the R2 and R3.
You came in for that.
Yeah, it was like Community Day or something like that. I came all the way out from Colorado just to check it out and to meet some locals and meet some Rivian people. It was really fun. Downtown is amazing. Was it always this nice around here?
No, that was actually, that started when I first became mayor.
When was that roughly?
2003 is when I became mayor. We actually started the process about 1999. And I was on a committee that helped start looking for a master planner to develop the plan and that. And then I got on council and then I became mayor.
And you haven't left yet.
I haven't left. No. I'm a slow learner.
Yeah, amazing. But downtown's beautiful. Like it is. I've been to a lot of towns in Illinois, and a lot of them are great, and I have a lot of friends that live in the state, but there is something kind of special about everything here, having sort of a college vibe, great restaurants, you have a little theater, like it's a really nice small town vibe, but everything's really nice quality.
Exactly. And they were impressed by that. They said there's something going on in this community that we don't see in other communities. And one of the people on the team said, I've been in the automotive business for 30 years, and if I go to a small Midwestern town with a dead car factory, I expect at most a Hilton Garden Inn and an Applebee's. And he said, you've got all this here.
Yeah, you've got hotels, great food. There's a lot of seems to be a lot of vibe of shop local around here, a lot of small business and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's very accurate. And we were very intentional when we redeveloped this area to keep that intact. We kind of came up with a ratio of if we had all these businesses here, no more than 20% of them could be national chains. It had to be local or regional businesses to really kind of keep that character.
That's kind of cool, actually. I like that. Anyway, yeah, if any of you guys are out in the area, you got to come through Normal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm here to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I love coming here, not only because I love Rivian and seeing what they're doing over there at the factory and driving around their test track and having fun, but it is, I usually stay right down over here.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful place to come.
Yeah.
So,
and let me, one other thing that they noticed too, and it kind of fit their culture, is there's a lot of innovative environmental and sustainable practices we did in the design of the Uptown. And that's a story for another day. Yeah. I'll tell you when we're off camera.
Okay, yeah. But of course that's, especially RJ, but Rivian as a whole, it sort of trickles down. Sustainability is through the entire core.
Exactly.
So the first couple meetings went well with Rivian. This was what year? 2020, 2019?
Probably 20... Yeah, probably 2019.
Okay, so Rivian's still not a thing. Were you able to talk about what they were doing? Did you have what was the vibe around them? They were sending more people to check it out, I imagine.
That's a great question because Rivian was radio silent.
Yeah,
they didn't want to talk about what they were doing. They didn't have a website, and so we're promoting Rivian as this potential tenant for this factory, and we're excited about it because we think they've got something going there. But nobody at Rivian wanted to talk about it because they were in stealth mode at that time. So that was kind of a challenge. We kept saying, at least get a website out there and let people know what you're doing. And they say, no, we're not ready to do that.
Interesting. So it's super intentional for them just to stay under the radar.
Very much so.
And then, convincing your colleagues to say, let's take these guys seriously with no website. That's wild.
Yeah.
So how'd you work through that?
We just kept working it, and we learned a lot of lessons doing this redevelopment about how to introduce new ideas to a community. So we had some credibility for doing that, and really there wasn't a lot of money involved from us locally, and I still don't know what the state did, but at that time the state was not doing much in terms of incentives to help factories.
Yeah. So how did you find out when they decided they're going to move make this the Rivian plant?
Well, I'd say when they bought it.
Yeah, well, that's a good one. Yeah,
because it happened quickly, and when they bought that, I think it was within 6 to 8 weeks of being torn down.
Oh wow! So really right up. It
was right at the wire.
Wow. Okay. And so what happened after they bought it? Did you feel any change and shift in terms of people moving here, plans happening, or was it pretty silent still?
It was still pretty quiet, and most of what they were doing was happening in Plymouth, Michigan, in their offices up there. And people in the community were happy about it, but skeptical.
Yeah.
I remember telling Senator Durbin, I think we've got we've got an automotive manufacturer that's going to buy this plant and reopen it. And he said, have you been drinking? He said, because in the Midwest, dead auto plants do not reopen.
Sure. But Rivian got them. And there's this new wave. There seems to be this EV startup burst that we're happening here. There's new companies. I don't know if you've seen this, Slate Auto Company. There's also Tello trucks. There's a bunch of these other, still I approach with a lot of skepticism, but could be really cool. And these new companies are going out and looking at factories in Midwestern towns. And so, before we get into what happened since Rivian purchased the factory, I think it would be cool to hear your impressions of any advice that you have to give through that very early vetting stage process to other local governments that may have shut down factories.
I'd say the first, what you have to do, and it's hard sometimes to do this, and I think we were successful because we're a little entrepreneurial in nature anyway, and so we were measuring our risk, and there wasn't a lot of risk, and the risk of not doing anything was much larger. So I think you've got to look at that, looking at your workforce, and I think the most important thing is establishing a level of trust between that new company and your community is critical. That you've got to have the feeling that when they say they're going to do X, Y, Z, that's what they're going to do. And we had that. We developed that relationship with Rivian, and to this day, I tell people, if Rivian says they're going to do X, they're going to do it.
And I would say from my side as well, they really do stick to their word on a lot of things, and totally, in the grand scheme of auto companies, right up there with the most trustworthy, for sure. So when was it that things started happening at the factory? This must have been 2021, early 21, I would guess, when things were moving in. People, I imagine, started moving here. What was that all like?
It was kind of interesting because it was happening quietly, because they were doing small numbers initially. They might have been 200 people in the factory, but to Rivian's surprise, and they were thrilled about it, is that there were old Mitsubishi people in the community that had been facilities people at the plant, and medium level team leaders, things like that were still here. And so they hired some of those people back in because they had so much knowledge about that facility from being there. Many of them had worked there 25, 30 years. So that was an early win for them. They felt Rivian was very excited that these people were available to help them go through that initial startup. And it moved pretty slowly. I mean,
Yeah.
their original concept was that they'd have maybe 1,300 employees at full production.
That was the idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
And
that didn't work out.
work, no. And they were looking to develop it like an industrial park. They were looking at selling off the stamping operation to a company that did stamping, who would stamp for Rivian
As a supplier,
and for other people. And so that's how they were looking at it, because they said, we'll never need 2.5 million square feet of plant.
And now we'll get into the huge expansion.
Right.
So, I remember coming here for the first time in probably end of 21, something like that. I had just heard about Rivian. I think it was end of 21. And I remember swinging by the factory going, wow, that's really cool. It was like right after they put the sign up with the Rivian on there. And that was the first time I ever heard of Normal, Illinois. And, my impression from the outside was there's a town called Normal. Where'd the
Right. And it was based off a teaching method called L'École Normale from France on how to teach people to teach. And so the founder of the community actually founded the university about 7 years before the town was founded. And he called it Illinois State Normal University.
Interesting.
And he was the guy that founded the town, and obviously wasn't very creative, and he called the town Normal.
Called it Normal. That's amazing. And Bloomington is next door.
Correct.
How's the relationship between you guys?
It's good. It's good. It's a different community in the sense it's an older community. Normal was a very small community until probably started really growing in the mid-'70s. The university wasn't that large, but when all the baby boomers started going to school, it just blew up.
Yeah, people would stay here, and then the town just grew naturally. Other than the school, is the factory the largest employer, or is the factory the largest employer?
The factory is the second largest employer in Bloomington and Normal.
Oh, wow, for both places.
Both places. State Farm is the largest employer.
That's right. How long have they been here for?
Since their inception, from the 1920s.
It's the OG home for them.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a huge facility they have over there as well, as my understanding.
Facilities.
Yeah. I haven't been by, but I know, I know people who work there. So the factory went in, Rivian went in. That was my first experience to the town. I think a lot of automotive people, back in the Mitsubishi days, those were cool cars. I'm sure people knew about them, but with this new electric spotlight and this like EV wave, so many new groups of people got into cars, and so many of them, really got into Rivian specifically. And I know many people have come to visit here, to visit the factory, as a tourist.
Right.
Just as a destination place, which, like, as a car enthusiast, Normal is now an automotive destination location. That's why I come here.
Thank you.
And it's fun. It's cool. I think, we got to do some car themed stuff around here.
Right.
This should be like a little drift circle where you can practice how to drive sideways.
Well, people do that anyway.
Allegedly, I almost got in trouble for doing it in a Rivian van one day around here. I was drag racing someone, but never happened in your community, of course. That was Bloomington.
Yeah, we'll catch you.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. So I picked up my truck in 2022, maybe April or May. I don't remember exactly, but sometime in 22, I got my Rivian. And I was in the factory, and I got to tour the facility as part of that. And I was blown away, because the crazy thing is, it's not a greenfield development site. They moved into an existing facility, but it fits so perfectly with what they were building at the time. Did you ever get to go over and watch some of the progress and see any of that getting built?
I did. I mean, I'm one of the few people who test drove a Rivian prototype, 0 to 60. What that is.
Oh, they're crazy.
Inside the plant.
No way.
Right.
That's amazing. So you may have set the speed record inside the
Well,
Rivian
I'm sure
factory.
the people that were developing the vehicle did it every day. So
So was
it
some
was
of the
that big and open.
so they were doing some testing inside so they wouldn't get spotted, or was it just for fun? Or
Probably both.
okay. Did you ever see the prototypes driving around here early days?
No, they were very, very secretive about that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So what's the scale of the factory today? I mean, right now we were just over there earlier today, and they are mass producing these vans, mass producing the R1S and R1T. They have lots full of vehicles, logistics, trains. Was Mitsubishi that active when they were here?
In a different way. They probably still, in their peak time, were producing more vehicles than Rivian is now, because Rivian's still in the growth mode.
Yeah.
They got the Amazon contract for the vans. The delays in Georgia that they have for the R2 caused them to bring that here.
Yeah. Was that exciting from your perspective?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Were you, yeah, how did that go with the Georgia conversation? Was that a little sting on your side, or how'd you take that?
You know, I remember, excuse me, the Georgia people were coming up here asking a lot of the same questions you're asking about the plant, and Governor Kemp came up one of the times, and he was talking about the plant and how well it was doing, and I said, well, that's my revenge for you stealing State Farm from us.
Okay.
He laughed about that. He thought that was funny.
Amazing. And so, but it ended up working out sort of in Normal's favor at the moment, where when I was just over there, that is under massive expansion.
Yes.
And not only in footprint, but I imagine workforce as well.
It is, and I think that's an issue for Rivian right now, and it's an issue for us in the community. For Rivian, it's where are they going to draw those additional workers? Because, you know, bringing, 9,000 people that they have right now in, that drew a lot from the region. So I think they're comfortable that they can do that. For us, the issue is providing the housing.
This is the biggest issue, I think. I was talking to RJ last year when I was out here at this event, and that was a big topic that was coming up. And actually, our driver from the airport yesterday, who knew you, by the way, everyone seems to know you around here, which is great. Local, I mean, you've been mayor forever, but everyone loves you, by the way. We've asked so many people about you. They're like, this guy is the best. So you have a huge fan club in your community, which is really cool.
That's
and
good.
I hope other mayors have the same thing, because you're super lucky to have this town.
Yeah.
But our driver yesterday was saying housing is a disaster at the moment. It's great if you owned a house because the value has gone up, but it doesn't necessarily benefit you if you're not selling.
Right.
And to move here is getting exponentially expensive. So this could be an interesting, thing for other cities that may have factories that are going to have an influx of people. How you guys are managing this would be really cool, kind of as a case study.
Well, so, you got to take a look at that in a broader picture too, because housing, whether you're expanding or contracting as a community, housing is getting more expensive. And there's a lot of factors at play. There's the cost of materials have gotten very high. Inflation has pushed that. The workforce, the people to actually do the work, is much harder. And there's a certain element of NIMBYism in existing communities where it's like, yeah, we need more housing, but we don't need that kind of housing anywhere near me.
Right. Yeah, there does. And I did, we got this vibe from a couple people too that I think everyone recognizes that we met so far in my travels here, that having Rivian here and really growing the workforce beyond what was expected is great overall for the community. But a lot of people feel like they wanted to live here and have a small town experience and kind of be, in this quiet environment. And while you're not Los Angeles with traffic jams all over the place or anything, but still, normal, it seems like a hustle and bustle in place right now, which I think is cool. You walk downtown, you see kids, you see other people. It's really got some vibrance to it. But maybe some people didn't want that.
I think people were afraid a little bit. excuse me. But the turning point on that was when RJ did his first kind of circle introduction to Rivian a few years back. And that kind of turned the community from skeptical to being excited about what was happening. I mean, it was a great show. And to RJ's credit, he stood out there and talked to a line of people until there was no more line. And it had to be 5 hours.
Really, out here?
Right out here on the street.
Amazing.
People wanted to talk to him. He was going to talk to them about his vision and what he was trying to do.
That's really cool. Have you seen that from the Japanese when they came here? Were they doing similar?
They were a little more reserved in that regard. I mean, we had a great relationship with them, very, very strong relationship. One of the things we did as a community, and I think that has something to do with Rivian coming here too, is we worked with them and developed a concept where we branded Normal as EV Town, because Mitsubishi was doing that iMEV.
Yeah, I own a couple of them actually.
Right.
Yeah.
I drove one for 11 years.
Oh, really? Okay, nice.
And
would you drive around and see iMEVs on the road?
oh yeah,
That's amazing.
there were a ton of iMEVs.
It's probably the only place in America outside of Los Angeles you'd see iMEVs driving.
Exactly. And you know, our reason for doing it was we wanted domestic production for the iMEV.
Right.
And so we were trying to work with Mitsubishi, and they were working with us on that to develop this notion of this is a community that is going to be on the forefront of electric vehicles and is really working hard to that end. 1 year, the federal government had what was called a community or a energy block grant program. The dollars were given to a formula for energy projects. And we used our dollars almost exclusively to put in charging stations.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so we put in,
What year was this, would you say?
I would say, so it had to be 2005, 2006.
Early days of
Yeah.
EV. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were a community that had, at that time, I think our first foray, we had 27 charging stations throughout the community.
Wow. Super impressive.
Yeah. And Tesla got wind of that, and that's why they put their first supercharger network in the Midwestern United States right out here in this parking garage.
No way. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So the Normal supercharger was because you were really embracing this electric experience. That's awesome. And well, we all know Tesla's done a great job building out their network. Have you tried that with your Rivian yet?
I haven't.
You got to go on a road trip and try the superchargers with your truck.
Yeah, I need to do that. When I took a road trip from here to Columbus, Ohio, to attend a conference, and it was so easy.
Yeah.
It was so easy. I had to stop once in Indianapolis to charge, and it was like 200 feet from a really nice little Vietnamese restaurant. So I was a happy guy.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, the amenities while charging, that can make or break a charging experience.
Right.
And Rivian's done a pretty good job of building out their adventure network. I think they have one somewhere in the community around.
They
And,
do. I'm not
not
sure where.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll try and find it later on today. But can you tell us more about what's happening at the factory now? So the factory, has been building R1T, R1S, and the van. Now R2, even though the Georgia plans are still in motion, I think.
They are. They are.
They're going to start series production of R2 here in Normal.
Right.
So how was that for you?
Well, my sense of it is, and that Rivian knows that it has to have that R2 product. You're going to reach a market saturation on the R1S and the R1T.
Yeah.
So the Georgia plant got delayed, so I think that they saw the need that they had to get that car to market. So I think that's why they're doing it here. And
Scott's got you a drink, by the way.
oh, thank you. We're going to edit them.
No, we leave it in.
All right. Okay.
It's one take always. Thank you, Scott. That was a good, impressive balancing of the camera.
That kind of works. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm better now.
Yeah. Great.
Where were we?
R2 expansion?
So I sense that they just really needed to get that to market, and that's why they're doing what they're doing here. And they were able to get the financing and the support to do it. And I think that's something worth looking at when we're talking about all these startup companies. RJ always said initially, he said, designing this product, that's the easy part.
Yep.
It's getting the incredible amount of financing and capital to make that and to make it over a 5-10 year period to have that stability. Most automotive people said they'll never make it.
Right.
For as good as the product is, they just don't have the wherewithal to do it.
I mean, we've heard that so many times, and across so many different companies. We've also seen so many companies that are trying to start up to build an EV fail, which, I think Normal got really lucky that Rivian succeeded and is still on the path to success. I mean, they still have a long way to go. R2 is going to be, really the make or break it product. And from what I can tell, it's an amazing product. And so I'm really looking forward to driving one. I filmed the one right out here, the prototype, and they're getting very close to production, which is exciting. But
RJ probably never, he'd say, don't ever say that.
Yeah.
When we saw those new vehicles, we were all like, oh, we want the R3.
Yeah, I mean, we all want the R3. R3X, this is going to turn, we should turn Normal into an EV racetrack for a day. Like, just do like a little R3 rally series around here.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. What would have happened if Rivian failed to the community?
People ask that question a lot, and I don't go there. I don't tend to talk about that kind of thing. If Rivian doesn't make it, then we'll deal with what we have to deal with. But my mind's too much on understanding what they're doing, and I see a company that I think is going to prevail. I just really do. And people say, oh, they're losing X amount of dollars per quarter. And I say, it's a startup.
Yeah.
I'm in a small business myself. First 5 to 7 years of a business, if you're break even, you're doing pretty good.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with how you feel as well. I feel super strongly that Rivian will succeed. A lot of it is due to the success here. Of course, producing the vehicles, very important, but also to sales, delivery, after sales experience through service. That's how they retain customers. And so many of our viewers drive Rivian vehicles, thousands of them. And the overall comments we get from Rivian owners, and that's not to say every single person is absolutely thrilled with everything on their vehicle, but the overall sentiment is everyone loves their Rivian. They can't wait to buy another one.
Right.
And we're seeing a lot of people with more than one Rivian in their household now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We've got 2 now at the office, which is exciting. Yeah. Yeah. So
your fleet's 100% Rivian.
Oh, well, we've got a lot of other stuff too, but yes, we do have a couple of Rivians.
All right.
What's to come? R2 is happening. More people. I assume they're going to be hiring more people for more production here.
They will. They'll need to hire some more people once they get the construction work done out there.
And are you out of that process now? Have you guys done your part, or do you need to help with housing? Or?
We're involved in it in terms of we have to do safety inspection, code inspection, and that. So, and the permitting that goes along with that. So, in that sense, we're there. Other than that, we're just more of a community supporter.
Amazing. Well, I can't thank you enough for the time.
Yeah,
this was cool.
I've got to share one more story with you about, and this is the culture that I see in this. It defines the culture that I see in Rivian. The state of Illinois was not giving a lot of incentives at the time they came in. And Rivian did get incentives for the initial thing. But we felt like we had to do whatever we could do to help them in those early stages. And for a community our size, it was unusual. But we came up with a scenario. We helped them get a 5-year property tax rebate. With all the taxing bodies locally, and we came up with an offer where we would give Rivian $1 million as a local community after a 5-year period if they met certain goals, hiring people, investing X amount of dollars in the plant. And they missed 1 year on it, and it was more of a technical glitch than anything. And at the end of the 5th year, we were ready to write them the check, and Rivian said, no, we're good, keep it.
That's amazing. That's super cool. So overall, community is benefiting massively from them.
Absolutely.
There's no question that there's always going to be some pushback from certain community members that wanted to live in a small town. But this definitely seems like the best thing for the local area.
Absolutely. I mean, when Mitsubishi closed, I had somebody say, I told you that plant would never make it. And I said, they were there for 33 years.
Right. Yeah. So, so that was a pretty good run. And now it's got a second lease on life.
Right.
Really pushing this EV situation as well. Rivian is known globally as a very high-end electric car manufacturer here in Normal. I would say, not that Mitsubishi had a bad image, but this is a really cool image to have for your town.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Rivians are awesome.
It just really, our culture and Rivian's culture really melds quite well.
It seems that way. I mean, I could see you and RJ getting along great.
Oh, we get along famously.
That's amazing. We're actually going to visit right after this a local community college. What was the name of it, Scott? Chris, do you know the name?
That would be Heartland Community College.
Heartland. So I understand they have an EV program situation somehow working with Rivian. Do you know much about that?
A little bit about it. They actually have 2 programs. One of them is electric vehicle manufacturing, and the other is electric vehicle maintenance program. Very cool. And I think battery technology is wound up in one of them. But it's very much oriented towards workforce.
Yeah.
So Rivian's been very helpful in that. And Rivian's been really, really good about supporting the community, even when they didn't have a lot to offer. During COVID, they actually paid for COVID testing for the school system in Normal.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They just felt like they wanted to give back to the community as much as they could. When the plant first opened, and they were bringing in the engineers, and they had all this space trying to figure out what to do with it, they partnered with a 4-H club who was were doing robotics, and so the engineers were mentoring these young kids in their robotics projects.
That's amazing.
So they've always been very involved and very involved with Illinois State University, very involved with Heartland Community College.
Well, I'll sort of end on this note, which is I learned about Rivian, or learned about Normal through Rivian. I'm really curious to see this, push of the Normal factory versus the Georgia factory.
There you go.
And to see how this goes. You've got the leg up on the race right now because they're producing cars here right now today. Is there anything you would offer Georgia as advice?
They asked me that very question, and I said, at the end of the day, and I'm a big believer in this, and I mentioned it earlier, trust. And I said, if Rivian tells you they're going to do something, they will do it. You can trust that. So that's what I would tell them. And I did tell their economic development people, the governor, and some of the elected officials that came to visit on that. They're very excited about getting that plant. And I understand that Rivian's going to need that production to succeed. It'll be a bigger plant than this plant.
Sure.
Although we've got the plant.
they're ripping cars right now out of there. Well, really great for you to take the time. I can't thank you enough. I can't believe the circumstances that led to this.
Yeah, how about that?
That is just amazing. And I hope we can come and do more with you next time. I'd love to go. Absolutely. We'll be back in 3 weeks, actually, to do a plant tour. It'd be fun to bring you around. Maybe we can set the top speed record again inside.
Yeah. You're gonna have to get in that little new section. And
exactly.
See if they'll let you do that.
Yeah, because the factory's jammed right now. It's amazing.
When they first started doing that and started doing production, it was the Wild West out there. There were construction vehicles going this way and moving machines that way, and they had little stop signs set up and actual stoplights in the factory.
Really?
For all the activity that was going on. It was fun to watch.
Well, that's Mayor Chris, everyone, of Normal, Illinois. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That was so much fun.
That's a good chat.
And I'm sure it's not the last time we'll see you on camera.
I hope not. I hope not.
Thank you guys for watching. See you in another one again soon. Bye-bye.